Or will they listen? Let's begin. The article says that the UK government is preparing to introduce a zero emission vehicle, the ZEV mandate, which would require manufacturers to ensure that electric vehicles, EVs, make up an ever-increasing percentage of sales. Proposed targets suggest that a minimum proportion of 22% should be zero emission from 2024. However, a new express.co.uk poll shows that just 6% of readers actually support the policy. The government's consultation was launched last month as part of a new Powering Up Britain strategy to increase the uptake of EVs ahead of the 2030 ban on new petrol and diesel vehicles. EV campaign group Fair Change founder Quentin Wilson said he was delighted the government had not watered down the ZEV mandate. He said that we all know the government has read our many letters and listened to feedback from our meetings with ministers to stay strong on future EV production targets, and we're delighted that they haven't caved into vested interests. And in a poll that ran from 7 AM on Friday, March the 31st to 8:30 AM Wednesday, April the 12th, express.co.uk asked readers, do you support the government's new zero-emission vehicle mandate? And over 4,055 readers responded, with an overwhelming majority of 94%, which is 3,813 people, answering no against the ZEV mandate, compared to 6% of 228 people who said yes in support of the policy, with just 14 people said they don't actually know, which to be honest surely kind of means that they don't care, so therefore could actually be added to the no pile, increasing it no doubt to 95%, or at least a little bit near that. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, because what is the actual point in them forcing an increase in the electric vehicles on the road when from 2030 there's going to be a ban anyway where everyone has to buy EVs instead of petrol or diesel vehicles if they want to buy a brand new car. Now, from what I've heard, there could be massive fines for manufacturers if they don't actually meet those targets, so surely something like this is bound to be a bad thing for consumers, isn't it? Because no doubt they'll probably want to raise their prices a bit of their vehicles just in case they get any of those fines to offset what is bound to be a big chunk of their profits. And yes, I know 4,000 Express readers isn't the whole country, however it is not a low percentage, is it? It's a whopping 94%, so surely that must count for at least something. And I'm guessing all those eco-idiots out there probably wouldn't agree with that, especially I'm guessing that Quentin Wilson guy who just seems to love what the government is doing, where the rest of us probably actually don't, especially with you, Les. I mean, I don't actually live around London, so it doesn't affect me too much, but no doubt something like that is going to spread across the whole of the country one day, isn't it? Where it is bound to affect a lot more people. Personally though, whilst of course it is a massive long shot, I do hope the government actually listens to the majority of people out there instead of these organisations. And I think personally that the 2030 ban is far too close. It should be put back to at least 2040 in my opinion. In fact, why even give us a ban at all? Especially when the charging infrastructure basically isn't up to much, is it, at the moment? And yes, I know there's around 7 or so years until then, so hopefully it'll improve, but I think the only time when it'll actually seem viable is when we've got a charger at every single Tesco's or Asda parking bay, where people can just charge whilst they shop. No doubt, of course, Tesco would probably love that, wouldn't they? So they can get double the money out of us. Some for our shopping and some for our parking, or charging. A pensioner who was slapped with a fine for driving in a bus lane got out of it after finding a loophole. Retired engineer Bill from Lincolnshire noticed that one of the 3 entry signs to the bus lane was not there at the time he drove through. The City Council said the sign had been damaged in a road accident and had deemed 2 signs to be sufficient, not on them live reports. A tribunal, though, concluded that the 2 remaining signs failed to adequately inform motorists about the bus lane, and the fine was revoked. Mr. Ball said, I'd never driven in a city before and I just didn't notice the bus lane. The camera that took the photo of me in the bus lane also took a picture of the signs. And as a stranger, I wasn't to know that a sign would normally be in the middle. But when I went onto Google Street View, there were 3 signs. It was a complete fluke that I'd actually noticed it. And people like me, we hardly come across bus lanes at all. A council spokesperson said, though, that Mr. Ball's successful appeal would not mean that other motorists who had already paid identical fines would be refunded. At the time of this fine was issued, a central bus gate sign had been damaged in a road accident. However, 2 signs remained in place on either side of the road, which we deemed sufficient for ongoing enforcement. The signs we use are DFT approved, and since our new road layout was introduced, we have provided further signage and road markings to make the arrangements, including a bus gate, as clear as possible to motorists. Well, it seems like, of course, we've got a load of crap from the council as usual, because if they thought that 2 signs were efficient warnings for motorists, then why did they have 3 in the first place? Surely they couldn't have been that efficient and actually required 3, so therefore they haven't got a leg to stand on. And just to come out and say that this means that people who also got fined can't get a refund is absolutely disgraceful in my opinion. Surely that court case is a precedent and all those people, after the sign had been knocked down, should be refunded. But no doubt, of course, councillors don't worry about things like that, do they? Just seem to love to take motorists' money nowadays. And it's not just motorists, is it? All we ever see nowadays is either fines for this, fines for that, or increasing prices of our council tax and other things like that. But usually we don't actually get anything for it, do we? It just goes to show where their priorities lie, in my opinion. Hoping people won't actually notice and then fine them. It's just absolutely out of order. But of course it is always worth appealing, just in case you do get a fine and can get out of it. Just like I'm guessing if a council employee went for a bus lane. Often makes me wonder if they think, oh no, I've been caught. I'll tell you what, I go back to the computer and delete it. They'll never know. Whereas the rest of us normal people have to pay fines. If we're not successful with any appeals, that is. Hopefully I'm wrong though, and those council officials are good boys and girls and actually do pay any fines they get. Anyway, I wonder what fines could be next that they'll try and think up. I mean, let me know in the comments what you think, but maybe, who knows, they could even discriminate against what kind of fuel a car uses. Only lanes for petrol at certain times of the day and diesel as well, but EVs can use all the lanes at any time of the day they like. But of course, they've got to come up with some sort of smart-ass name for it, haven't they? So we'll call it, Poules. But let's face it, I really hope I'm wrong with that, and something tells me I probably am. Ford drivers will be the first to use self-driving tech in the UK, thanks to a release of a new driving assistance feature. Ford has just launched a tool called Blue Cruise for its 2023 Mach-E models, and it uses AI and advanced driver assistance tech to allow you to drive hands-free down 2,300 miles of motorway across the UK. It's the first level 2 self-driving tech that's been approved for use on UK roads, meaning that Ford drivers will get to experience hands-free driving even before Tesla owners. The system uses 5 radars and built-in camera to detect road markings, traffic and signs, and it then takes all this data and uses it to control acceleration, steering, braking and positioning. It is designed to keep the vehicle a safe distance from other cars, and it also ensures the driver is actually paying attention to the road using a driver-facing camera. If the car detects that you're not actually focused on the road, it will make you use the steering wheel again or stop the car. That would be good on the motorway, wouldn't it? The software is free for the first 90 days to Mach-E owners and then goes up to £17.99 a month. It is currently only available for 2023 model of the Mach-E, but is likely to be added to older vehicles in the future. It works up to 80 miles an hour on 2,300 miles of designated motorways across the UK called Blue Zones, and it is unclear when these zones will be extended by Highways England in the future. But Ford's use of the technology will likely pave the way for more self-driving zones across the country. Well, of course, I don't know about you, but this sort of thing really annoys me. And I'm not talking about the actual self-driving itself, I'm talking about the subscription cost. I mean, it just seems to be a way that everything nowadays is a subscription. It's about 50 grand, which apparently the car is, not enough for the company or something, thereby making people pay more for every month they own the car, and all that surely is adding to the company's profits even more than their ridiculously priced cars in the first place. I mean, how long will it actually be before we have to pay a subscription for the car itself rather than just buy them new? I know you can do that with companies like Onto and Elmo, where everything's included if you choose to, but they're quite expensive in my opinion, and surely cost actually a lot more in the long term than either buying the car or actually leasing it. Maybe, who knows, instead of paying a price up front, we'll get charged £5 a month for the doors, £5 a month for the wheels, and £1.50 for a nagging backseat driver. I bet Tesla is also pretty peed off with this news because they are often seen as one of the pioneers in self-driving tech. And yet another company has come along and basically just said, we can do one better than you, because with Tesla cars, I have never driven one, but you have to have your hands on the wheels at all time, but with this new tech, you actually won't. And unfortunately, it doesn't actually say where these 2,300 miles of motorway are. But surely, if they're going to release it to the public, it should be available and tested on all motorways. One thing that I do not like at all, and is actually quite concerning though, is the driver-facing camera, because I don't want to sound like a person of the tinfoil hat club, but do you reckon there's a chance that they could, I don't know, using it for spying on the drivers instead? Actually checking where you are, who you're with, and presumably where you're also going as well, because no doubt, of course, the car would surely need to know that to be able to see if you're on an approved road or not. And if that is the case, which personally I hope it isn't, and it might not be, and it could only be there for actually just checking if you're facing the road, which every driver should be, then who knows what companies or government agencies, whatever, the data could actually be passed to. If they were doing a bit of sneaky spying, that is. And of course I don't know about you, but I personally think 18 quid a month for that tech is quite expensive really. I mean, it would be quite nice to try it, but I think it should come with the car itself as an option and not a subscription, because let's face it, subscriptions never end, do they? Unless they're cancelled by you, the user, and could actually cost quite a bit more than the feature itself if you just bought it outright, that is. If that is indeed possible. It doesn't sound like it is, does it? And of course, if you think that's bad, then wait until you see this next video where, if you're not careful, you can actually fall victim to this latest driving scam. Anyway, subscribe for more and I'll see you in the next one.